What happened in that isolated cabin on a frozen November night would change 3 lives forever. She thought she knew what terror looked like, thought she understood the difference between danger and safety, between monster and man. But when the Mountain Apache stepped out of the shadows, everything she believed shattered. They said he was a killer, a ghost who took women into the mountains and they were never seen again. The town had been whispering his name in fear for 5 long years, but what he did that night, what he saw, what he chose, would set in motion something no one could have predicted. And what she would forget would test a love deeper than memory itself. Before we begin this story, tell me, where are you watching from? And do you believe some bonds are stronger than memory? Let me know in the comments. Nahuel had learned to live with ghosts. For 3 years, the Apache warrior had walked these Colorado mountains alone. His wife, his infant daughter, his entire village, lost to a cavalry raid that came without warning. The mountains didn't judge, didn't remind him of all the ways he'd failed to protect the people he loved. So he stayed, hunting, surviving, waiting for a purpose that never came. Until the night he heard the screaming. It was late November, the kind of cold that turned breath to ice. Nahuel had been tracking an elk when the sound cut through the frozen air. A woman's voice, crying, begging, and a man's voice, roaring with rage. Every instinct told him to walk away. White people's problems were not his concern. Getting involved meant trouble, the kind that ended with ropes and bullets. But the woman screamed again, and something in that sound pulled at a part of him he thought had died. The cabin appeared through the trees, small, weathered, smoke rising from the chimney. Through the window, Nahuel saw them. The woman was young, visibly pregnant, dark hair falling around her shoulders. She had her hands raised, trying to shield herself, tears streaming down her face. The man was bigger, his face twisted with whiskey and rage. Thomas Whitmore, Nahuel recognized him from the trading post, a farmer, respected, the kind other white men called a good Christian. "You think I don't see how you look at other men?" Thomas shouted. "Thomas, please, I've never—" "Liar!" He shoved her, hard. The pregnant woman stumbled backward, tried to catch herself, missed. Her head struck the table corner with a sickening crack. She crumpled to the floor and didn't move. Thomas stood over her, breathing hard. Then he grabbed a bottle, took a long drink, and walked out the back door, leaving his pregnant wife unconscious and bleeding. Nahuel didn't think, just moved. He broke the window, climbed through, and knelt beside her. Up close he could see how young she really was, how thin, how the bruises on her arms were old and new, layered like seasons of pain. He pressed fingers to her throat. Pulse. Weak, but there. Gently, Nahuel lifted her into his arms. She was lighter than she should be. Her head lolled against his chest, blood matting her hair. His cave, 3 miles up the mountain, hidden behind a frozen waterfall, somewhere Thomas wouldn't find her. The journey was brutal. Snow fell thick and heavy. Nahuel's arms burned, but he didn't slow down. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Just stay with me." By the time he reached the cave, his muscles screamed with effort, but the fire was still burning, warm, dry, safe. He laid her on his sleeping furs and began working. First, the head wound. He cleaned it with heated water and healing herbs his grandmother had taught him to use. Then he checked the rest of her, the bruises, the way she held her body, even unconscious. And the baby. Nahuel placed his hand gently on her swollen belly and felt nothing, no movement, no kick. His heart stopped. He'd helped birth foals, calves, even assisted at human births in his village. He knew what a healthy pregnancy felt like. This wasn't it. Her belly was rigid, hard in a way that meant internal bleeding. "No," Nahuel whispered. He worked through the night, using every skill he possessed. Apache medicine, prayers, herb combinations that could stop bleeding, reduce swelling, save lives. As dawn broke, Elena stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, brown, beautiful, filled with confusion and terror. She saw him, saw the cave, and screamed. "Please!" Nahuel raised his hands, moving back. "You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." Elena scrambled backward, her hand going to her belly. "Who are you? Where am I?" "You were hurt," Nahuel said gently. Your husband. You fell. Hit your head. I brought you here to help. You're Apache. Her eyes went wide. The ghost in the mountains. My name is Nahuel. I have to go back. Elena tried to stand and swayed, her face white with pain. Thomas will be worried. He left you, Nahuel said quietly. He pushed you, you were bleeding, and he walked out. The words hung in the air. Elena's face crumpled. No. He was just angry. He didn't mean... I saw everything. Tears streamed down her face. Not fear now, something deeper. The kind of tears that came from truths you'd been hiding even from yourself. The baby, she whispered suddenly, both hands on her belly. Is the baby... Nahuel's expression told her everything. There's bleeding inside, he said softly. The fall damaged something. I've done everything I know, but... He met her eyes. The next few days will tell us if your baby survives. Elena made a sound like something breaking, and Nahuel, who had sworn never to care about another person again, felt his own heart crack at the sight of her pain. The fever came on the second night. Elena's temperature spiked, sending her into delirium. She thrashed on the furs, mumbling words Nahuel couldn't understand. Please, she whispered in her fever dreams. Please don't be angry. I'll do better. I promise. Even unconscious, she was apologizing. Nahuel worked without stopping. Crushed herbs, yarrow, willow bark, blue cohosh. Made poultices and teas, changed compresses every hour, monitored her pulse with the focus of a warrior in battle. This was a battle. Life against death. And Nahuel refused to let death win. On the third night, Elena's fever broke. Why are you doing this? She asked, her voice hoarse. Nahuel stirred herbs into boiling water. You needed help. The town says you're dangerous, that you've killed white men. He turned to face her. I defended myself when soldiers attacked my village, fought back when they came to kill my family, my wife, my baby daughter. If that makes me dangerous, then yes. The honesty struck her. No excuses, just truth. I'm sorry, she whispered, for what they did to you. And I'm sorry for what was done to you. Over the following days, as Elena regained strength, they talked. She told him about Thomas, how he'd been kind once, courting her with wildflowers. He changed when I got pregnant, started drinking, started seeing threats everywhere. Everything I did was wrong. That's not your fault. Maybe if I'd been a better wife... No. Nahuel's voice was firm. A man who hurts a woman carrying his child is not a man. He's a coward. No one had ever said that to her. Everyone in town had suggested she must have provoked him, but this Apache warrior saw the truth immediately. Tell me about your family, Elena said one evening. Nahuel's hands paused. Her name was Ayana, Morning Star, our daughter Kimi, 6 months old when the soldiers came. I'm so sorry. They gave us no chance, just fire and bullets. His eyes held oceans of grief. I was hunting. When I got back, nothing left but ash. How do you survive something like that? Some days I don't know, I just keep breathing. He looked at her. You just learn to carry it differently. She understood surviving moment by moment. As weeks passed, something shifted. Nahuel would sing to her belly in Apache, low, gentle songs. The baby began to move again, small flutters, then stronger kicks. He's getting better, Elena said with wonder, her hand over Nahuel's as he sang. He's a fighter, like his mother. Thomas had never touched her belly with tenderness, never sung to their child. But this stranger treated her unborn baby with a reverence that made her want to weep. One night, Elena spoke the truth she'd been avoiding. I don't want to go back. When I'm healed, I don't want to go back to him. Then don't. He's my husband. The law doesn't feel what you feel, doesn't see what I saw. He moved closer. You owe that man nothing. But the baby needs a father. The baby needs safety, love, protection, not a man who pushed his mother and walked away. Eleanor's eyes filled with tears. I'm so tired of being afraid. Nahuel knelt beside the furs. He didn't touch her, but his presence was solid, grounding. You're safe here as long as you need. I will protect you and your child. This I swear on my daughter's memory. And Elena believed him. She was falling asleep that night when she heard it. A voice outside the frozen waterfall. "Elena, Elena, please, I know you're in there." "Thomas." Elena's body went rigid with terror. Nahuel was on his feet instantly, knife in hand. "Stay behind me." But Elena followed him on shaking legs. Through the curtain of ice, she could see Thomas on his knees in the snow, face ravaged by tears. "Elena, please," Thomas's voice broke. "I'm so sorry. I was drunk. I was crazy. I would never hurt you, never hurt our baby." Nahuel looked at Elena. "You don't have to answer him." But Elena moved forward, drawn by something she couldn't name. Thomas looked destroyed, eyes red and swollen, hands clasped like he was praying. "I'll change," he sobbed. "I swear to God. I'll stop drinking. I'll be the man you married. Just please, please come home. Our baby needs his father. I need you. I love you." Every word was a hook, pulling at Elena's deepest wounds, her fear of being alone, her need to believe people could change. "Elena," Nahuel said quietly, "men like this don't change." "You don't know that," Elena whispered, tears streaming. "You don't know him like I do." "I know what I saw. He was drunk. He didn't mean... He meant it. Drunk men do what sober men want to do." Thomas was still on his knees, weeping. "I'll prove it. I'll do anything. Just give me one more chance for our son, for our family." Elena's hand moved to her belly where the baby kicked gently. A father. Every child deserved a father. Didn't they? Helena stepped through the ice curtain the next morning. Nahuel hadn't slept. He'd sat by the fire all night, watching her wrestle with her decision, knowing what she would choose even before she spoke the words. "I have to try," Elena said, her voice breaking. "He's my husband, the father of my child. I have to give him this chance." Nahuel's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "Because I don't. I don't understand why I'm doing this. I know you're right. I know he probably won't change. But what if he does? What if this time is different? And if it's not? Then I'll leave. I promise. If he hurts me again, I'll come back. You'll still be here, won't you?" Nahuel stood, crossed to her. He wanted to touch her face, wanted to pull her close and tell her not to go, but he had no right. She wasn't his. "I'll be here," he said quietly. "Always. If you need me, I'll come." Elena broke then, sobbing against his chest. Nahuel held her, breathing in the scent of her hair, memorizing the feel of her in his arms because he knew in his bones, that when she left this cave, she might never come back. "Thank you," Elena whispered, "for saving me, for showing me what kindness looks like. You showed me something too. You reminded me my heart still works." They stood like that for a long moment, two broken souls clinging to each other. Then Elena pulled away, wiped her tears, and walked out into the snow where Thomas waited. Nahuel watched her go, feeling like his chest had been carved hollow. The first week back in town felt like a miracle. Thomas had stopped drinking completely, poured out every bottle in the house, made a show of it so Elena could see. He was attentive, gentle, bringing her breakfast in bed, rubbing her swollen feet, reading to the baby in her belly. "I'm so sorry," he said every night before they slept. "I'll never hurt you again. I swear it." Elena wanted to believe him, tried to believe him. The man she'd married seemed to have returned, the one who'd courted her with wildflowers, who'd promised her a beautiful life. But there were signs, small ones at first, the way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes, the tension in his shoulders when she talked to the shopkeeper, the way he watched her, always watching, like he was waiting for her to make a mistake. "Don't start," he said when Elena's face fell at the smell of whiskey. "I had one drink, one. You don't control me." "I just worry." "About what?" "That I'll turn into a monster." His voice rose. "Maybe if you weren't such a cold, ungrateful... Thomas, please, the baby, that's all you care about. What about me?" What about what I need? He grabbed her arm, his fingers digging in. Elena's blood turned to ice. You're hurting me. I'm barely touching you. You're so dramatic, always making me the villain. But his grip tightened. Elena tried to pull away, and Thomas shoved her, not hard, he'd say later, not really. Just enough to make a point. Elena stumbled backward, her pregnant belly throwing off her balance. Her hip hit the table corner, and pain exploded through her abdomen. She gasped, doubling over. Elena! Thomas's voice changed, fear creeping in. Elena, I didn't... It was barely a push. Something's wrong. Elena's hands went to her belly. Something's wrong with the baby. The pain came in waves. Not the baby moving, this was different. 3 days after Elena left, Nahuel woke from a dream drenched in cold sweat. He'd seen her, seen Elena lying in a pool of blood, her eyes empty, a baby crying beside her. The dream had felt so real he could still smell the copper scent of blood, could still hear the infant's desperate wails. Just a dream, he told himself. She's fine. She chose him. But the feeling wouldn't leave. It followed him through the day like a shadow, growing heavier with each hour. His grandmother had called these feelings Itza, warnings from the spirits. She'd taught him never to ignore them. By nightfall, Nahuel couldn't bear it anymore. He grabbed his pack, his knife, and started down the mountain. 3 miles through snow and darkness, driven by a fear he couldn't name but couldn't ignore. The cabin windows were dark when he arrived. No smoke from the chimney, no sounds of life. Everything in Nahuel screamed danger. He tried the door, locked. He circled to the back, found a window slightly open and climbed through. The smell hit him first. Blood, sweat, and something else. Death approaching. Elena? He called softly. A baby's cry answered, weak, desperate. Nahuel followed the sound to the bedroom and stopped in the doorway, his heart shattering. Elena lay beside the bed in a pool of blood, her face pale as snow. In her arms, a tiny newborn still attached by the cord, both of them covered in birth blood and Elena's hemorrhaging. No. Nahuel was across the room in seconds, kneeling beside her. No, no, no. Elena, stay with me. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused. Cold, she whispered. So cold. The baby wailed again, stronger this time. A fighter, like his mother. Nahuel's hands moved on instinct. He'd helped birth animals, had even assisted at human births. He knew what to do. He cut the cord with his knife, cleaned and wrapped the baby in a blanket. Then he turned to Elena. The bleeding was catastrophic. She'd delivered alone, without help, and something had torn inside her. I need to move you, Nahuel said, though he wasn't sure she could hear. Need to get you somewhere I can help. He was gathering supplies, preparing to carry her, when he heard the front door slam open. Thomas Whitmore stumbled into the house, singing off-key, reeking of whiskey. Elena, he called. Elena, baby, I brought food, got hungry at the tavern and... He stopped in the bedroom doorway, saw Nahuel, saw Elena on the floor, saw the blood. What did you do? Thomas's voice went from drunk confusion to rage in a heartbeat. What did you do to my wife? I'm saving her life, Nahuel said, his voice deadly calm. Something you should have done hours ago. You broke into my house, you're trying to steal her. She's dying, and you left her here alone to give birth while you drank. The truth of it hit Thomas like a slap. His face went white, then red with fury and shame. Get out. Get out of my house. No. I'll call the sheriff. I'll tell them you... Tell them what? Nahuel stood, and something in his posture made Thomas take a step back. That you got drunk and abandoned your wife during childbirth, that she nearly died because of you, that your son was born into blood and terror because you were too much of a coward to face what you'd done. Thomas lunged, drunk, clumsy, telegraphing every move. Nahuel sidestepped easily, caught Thomas's arm and twisted until the man dropped to his knees with a cry of pain. I could kill you, Nahuel said quietly, for what you've done to her, for the fear in her eyes. For every bruise you've given her, it would be easy. Then do it, Thomas spat. No, because she wouldn't want me to, because somewhere in her broken heart, she still believes you can change. Nahuel released him with disgust. But I'm taking her. I'm taking her and the baby. And if you come after us, if you try to hurt her again, then I won't be so merciful. Thomas stayed on the floor, weeping, as Nahuel lifted Eleanor into his arms. She was so light, so pale. The baby bundled against her chest. Please, Thomas sobbed. Please, I love her. I can change. Nahuel didn't answer, just carried his precious burden out into the night. The journey back up the mountain was the longest of Nahuel's life. Elena drifted in and out of consciousness, mumbling things he couldn't understand. The baby cried weakly, too weak. Both of them were dying in his arms. Stay with me, Nahuel begged. Both of you. Please, stay with me. In his cave, Nahuel worked like a man possessed. Herbs for bleeding, poultices for infection, warmth, water. He sang healing songs his grandmother had taught him, prayers to the spirits to spare this woman and her child. For 3 days he didn't sleep, didn't eat, just worked, monitoring Elena's breathing, feeding the baby drops of honey water, changing blood-soaked bandages. On the 4th day, the baby started nursing. On the 5th, Elena's fever broke. On the 6th day, she opened her eyes. Hello, Nahuel said softly, relief flooding through him. You're safe. Who are you? The words struck like a blade. Nahuel's smile faded. What? Elena pulled the baby closer, fear in her eyes. Who are you? Where am I? Why do you have my son? Elena, it's me. It's Nahuel. I brought you here before when you were hurt. Don't you remember? But her eyes were blank, empty of recognition. She looked at him like he was a stranger, a threat. I don't know you, Elena said, her voice rising with panic. I don't know this place. What happened? Where's Thomas? Where's my husband? And Nahuel understood. The trauma, the blood loss, the near death, it had stolen her memory. Everything they'd shared in this cave, every song he'd sung to her belly, every moment of connection, gone. She didn't remember him, didn't remember how he'd saved her, didn't remember that she'd fallen in love with him before fear drove her back to Thomas. It's okay, Nahuel said gently, though his heart was breaking. You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to help you get well, and then we'll figure out what comes next. But as Elena clutched her baby and looked at him with terrified, empty eyes, Nahuel wondered if anything could fix what had been broken, if she would ever remember, if she would ever trust him again. The first week was torture. Elena watched Nahuel like he was a predator. She held her baby close, flinched when he came near, asked constantly when she could go home. Soon, Nahuel would say gently, when you're stronger. But he made no move to force her to stay. He simply cared for them, bringing food, changing bandages, tending the fire. And at night, when the baby cried, Nahuel would rise and walk the cave floor, singing low Apache lullabies. Elena watched, confused by the tenderness in this stranger's voice. Why do you do that? She asked one night. Nahuel looked at her, the baby sleeping against his chest. All children deserve to be loved, especially ones who entered the world through pain. Something in his voice tugged at her memory, something familiar. By the second week, Elena watched him more closely. The way he moved, the way he looked at her when he thought she wasn't watching. There was love in those eyes, deep, aching love. Why would a stranger love her? One night, as Nahuel sang to her son, Elena had a flash, a memory of lying on these furs, pregnant, a hand on her belly, the same voice, the same gentle touch. I know that song, she said suddenly. Nahuel stopped. What? That song. I've heard it before. I sang it to you, before, when you were here the first time. The first time? Elena pressed her hands to her temples. Why can't I remember? The trauma, the blood loss, it stole your memories. Tears filled her eyes. What else did it steal? Over the following days, the memories came in pieces. A hand cleaning a wound, a voice telling her she was safe, the scent of herbs, being carried through snow. And then, one morning, as Elena watched Nahuel singing to her baby, calling him Little Warrior, Everything came flooding back. The cabin, Thomas pushing her, the fall, waking here, weeks of healing, learning about Nahuel's family, the moment she'd realized she loved him. "Nahuel," Elena whispered. He turned, and something in her face made him go still. "I remember," she said, tears streaming. "I remember everything. How you saved me, how you cared for me, how I loved you. And then I left anyway." Nahuel crossed the cave, dropped to his knees beside her. "You did what you thought was right, but you were right. He'll never change." Elena touched his face, "And I almost died rather than admit I should have stayed with you." "You're here now," Nahuel said, voice rough with emotion. "That's all that matters." "Why would you wait for someone who chose another man?" "Because I love you," Nahuel said simply. "I love you and your son. And love doesn't stop just because it's hard." Elena kissed him then, desperate, grateful. Nahuel kissed her back with 3 weeks of silent longing, with all the fear he'd carried. When they broke apart, both were crying. "I love you," Elena whispered. "I'll love you for the rest of my life." "Then stay," Nahuel said. "Stay with me. Let me be a father to your son." The sound of horses cut through the moment. Through the ice curtain they could see a dozen men on horseback led by Thomas. "Eleanor," Thomas's voice echoed, "I've come to bring you home." "You don't have to face him," Nahuel said. "No." Eleanor stood, baby in her arms, spine straight. "I need to do this." They stepped through the ice curtain together. Thomas looked haggard, desperate. "Elena, thank God he kidnapped you. Come home with me, please." "He didn't kidnap me," Elena said, voice clear and strong. "He saved my life. Again. While you were drinking, I was dying on our bedroom floor. He's the reason I'm alive, the reason our son is alive." Thomas's face crumpled. "I made a mistake, but I love you." "No, you don't." Eleanor's voice was gentle but firm. "You love the idea of me. But love doesn't hurt, Thomas. Love doesn't push. Love doesn't abandon." She moved closer to Nahuel, and he wrapped his arm around her. "This man has shown me what real love looks like," Eleanor continued. "He's cared for my son like he was his own. He's more of a father than you could ever be." "He's a savage," one of the men shouted. "He's a man, a good man, the best man I've ever known, and I'm staying with him." Thomas looked at them, at the way Elena leaned into Nahuel, at the love in their eyes, and he saw the truth. He'd lost her, not to force, but to his own cruelty. "I could force you," Thomas said weakly. "You could try," Nahuel replied quietly. "But you know she deserves better than you could ever give her." Thomas stared at them for a long moment. Then he turned his horse and rode away. Eleanor watched him go, feeling the weight of her old life lift. "Are you sure?" Nahuel asked quietly. "Choosing me means choosing a hard life." "I'm not choosing an easy life," Elena said. "I'm choosing a real one." 1 year later, Elena sat by the fire, nursing their newborn daughter while watching Nahuel teach her son to track in the snow. The boy was 15 months old now, and he called Nahuel Papa with absolute conviction, because Nahuel was his papa, not by blood, but by choice. Nahuel came in carrying the boy, both laughing and covered in snow. "Mama," the child called. "Papa says I'm a warrior." "There you are," Eleanor said, smiling. "The bravest warrior I know." Nahuel kissed her forehead, then the baby's. "How are my girls?" "Perfect," Eleanor said, and meant it. They'd built something beautiful, something real, something that didn't need the town's approval. They had each other. They had their children. They had love that had survived trauma, amnesia, separation, and doubt. That was enough. That was everything. She thought a father was the man who gave life, but she learned a father is the man who chooses to stay. This is the story of a woman who lost her memory and found her heart. A reminder that sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with passion, but with patience. That the truest fathers aren't always the ones biology chooses, but the ones who choose to love anyway. Tell me, have you ever loved someone who couldn't remember you existed? Have you ever had to prove your love through action instead of words? If this story touched your heart, like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who needs to remember that real love doesn't give up. And where in the world are you watching from? I love knowing these stories reach hearts across the globe, because stories don't just end, they stay with you. We have a date with our next adventure.